When Selena first met Ryan, she thought she had stumbled into a romance novel. It was a late autumn afternoon, the leaves just beginning to turn gold, and he had held the cafe door open for her with that warm, almost boyish smile. Their conversation that day had been light and teasing, about coffee blends, travel dreams, and books they both loved, but something in his eyes made her feel she'd known him far longer than a few minutes. Their courtship was gentle yet passionate. Ryan loved taking her on evening walks along the riverside, the city lights dancing on the water. They would talk about everything: future houses, favorite foods, how many children they wanted, and he would squeeze her hand just a little tighter when the night grew colder. Selena was drawn to his confidence, the way he seemed so sure of their future together. When he proposed 6 months later, it was in the park where they first walked under the autumn leaves. A simple gold band, a soft, "Will you marry me?" whispered like a secret. Selena said yes without hesitation. Her heart was full. She believed she was stepping into a life filled with love, respect, and unity. Ryan's family welcomed her warmly at first. His mother served her tea, his father asked polite questions about her work, and his younger sister Nikki, polished, charming, effortlessly fashionable, embraced her with a smile that seemed genuine. Selena wanted to believe she was accepted completely. But in the weeks that followed, she began noticing small things. Nikki's smile would tighten whenever Selena spoke. Her compliments often carried an aftertaste, like a spoonful of sugar stirred into bitter tea. One Sunday brunch, Nikki had tilted her head and said, "That's such a cute dress, Selena. It's nice to see you don't feel pressured to buy expensive clothes to fit in." Her tone was light, almost playful, but the words clung to Selena's mind like burrs. Another time, when the conversation turned to vacations, Nikki laughed and said, "Oh, but you wouldn't know. Ryan's never taken you skiing in the Alps, right? That's more our thing." Selena smiled politely, sipping her coffee, her fingers tightening around the cup just enough to feel the heat. It wasn't just the remarks. It was the way Nikki looked at her. An appraising glance from head to toe, as though measuring her worth against an invisible checklist. Selena reminded herself that family dynamics were complicated. Perhaps Nikki was just protective of her brother. Perhaps these comments were nothing more than clumsy attempts at humor. Ryan didn't seem to notice. When Selena mentioned Nikki's tone one evening, he chuckled. "She's always been like that," he said, wrapping an arm around her. "Don't take it to heart. You know she's harmless." So Selena tried. She told herself to ignore the little jabs, to smile through them. After all, wasn't marriage about compromise? Wasn't family about acceptance? She had promised herself she would not start their life together with petty conflicts. Still, there were moments she caught her reflection in the mirror, shoulders slightly hunched, smile a little forced, and wondered when she had started to brace herself before family gatherings. One evening, as Ryan drove them home from his parents' house, the city lights flickering past the windows, Selena stared out in silence. Nikki had made another comment about her humble background that night, this time in front of Ryan's friends. Everyone laughed lightly, but Selena felt the sting deep inside. Ryan reached for her hand on the gear shift. "You're quiet," he said. "Just tired," she replied, forcing a smile. The truth was, she was tired. Not of the gatherings, but of the small humiliations she tried so hard to brush off. Yet as she looked at Ryan's profile, lit by the soft glow of the dashboard, she told herself again that this was a small price to pay for the life they were building. She wanted peace, not tension. For now, she would let it go. She would swallow her pride and believe that this was just family banter, nothing more. But somewhere, deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that the cracks in this perfect illusion were already starting to show. The family chose a glass-walled bistro for Sunday brunch, the kind with marble tables and a menu that translated ordinary eggs into sun-blessed farm heritage. Selena arrived with a bouquet of peonies for Ryan's mother and a box of macarons from a small bakery she liked. Nikki was already there, seated by the window, sunlight catching on the metal threads of her designer dress. "Finally," Nikki said, standing to air kiss. "I was afraid you got lost. The parking here is confusing if you're not used to these places." Selena smiled. Traffic was heavy. She handed the peonies to Ryan's mother, who looked pleased, then set the macarons near the bread basket. Nikki's eyes flicked to the bakery label. Oh, that neighborhood. So charming. She smoothed her dress with both hands, letting the fabric shimmer. Isn't this gorgeous? Limited release. There were only 20 in the city. She glanced at Selena's simple blouse, but I suppose a classic look never goes out of style. Ryan slid into the seat beside Selena and bumped her shoulder in a friendly way. You look great, he said to her, then turned to Nikki. Is that the dress you waited in line for? Worth every minute, Nikki said. Some women don't understand luxury. They buy practical things and then wonder why people treat them like background furniture. The server came to pour water. Selena asked for tea. Nikki asked for a sparkling fruit infusion with the brand name pronounced carefully, like a password. Ryan's parents studied the menu. Ryan cracked a joke about eggs that made his father chuckle, and Selena let herself relax a fraction. Maybe it would be fine. Then Nikki leaned in, voice bright. Selena, did you see the new boutique on 5th? They do private fittings. I'd love to take you. A woman in your position should know these things. My position? Selena said lightly. As Ryan's wife, Nikki said, smiling as if this were helpful. People notice. It reflects on the family when someone doesn't keep up. Ryan laughed, thinking it was teasing. Nikki's the family stylist, he said. She thinks my socks are a national emergency. Everyone laughed with him. Selena sipped her tea and felt the heat move down her throat. She told herself to let it roll off. She had promised herself calm. The dishes arrived, plates arranged like small landscapes. Nikki picked at hers and started scrolling through her phone. I posted a story, she announced. Family time. Ryan, lean in. Selena, hold your cup. That's sweet. She snapped the photo before Selena could adjust. Ryan's mother asked about work. Selena kept her answers clean and short. Her companies rarely entered these conversations. It was easier this way. But Nikki tilted her head, the way she did when she smelled gossip. Selena, do you still work, remotely? Nikki asked. It must be so nice not to worry about long hours. Some of us don't have that luxury. Selena let the comment pass. Remote can be long hours too, she said. Nikki shrugged. I'm just saying, there's a difference between a hobby and a job, but if it keeps you busy. Ryan grinned at the server. Another round of mimosas, he said, missing the slight way Selena's shoulders drew in. He squeezed her knee under the table, easy and affectionate, and she wished his warmth could drown out the sting of Nikki's words. When the conversation shifted to travel, Nikki launched into a story about a chalet in the Alps. They had a private driver because, honestly, once you've experienced that level of service, you can't go back. She laughed. Selena, you must come with us sometime. You'll love it. It's not basic. Ryan's father cleared his throat, uncomfortable. His mother reached for a peony and moved it to a prettier vase from the counter. Selena caught that small act and felt a tiny rope thrown her way. She smiled at Ryan's mother, grateful. The bill arrived in a leather folder. Ryan reached for it. Nikki's hand darted faster. I've got it, she said, eyes landing briefly on Selena. Consider it my treat. Family should look after image, right? Ryan chuckled and let her have it. Thanks, sis. While the card machine beeped, Selena stood to go to the restroom. She washed her hands slowly, breathing in and out until the mirror no longer showed a girl who wanted to disappear. When she returned, Nikki was telling a story about a friend's wedding dress that looked expensive but wasn't, and how everyone could tell. Selena sat and folded her napkin. Nikki, she said quietly, careful with her tone, sometimes the way you say things sounds unkind. Nikki blinked, the innocent look sliding into place. Oh? I'm just honest. Would you rather I lie? I'd rather you be kind, Selena said. Ryan, surprised by the shift, looked between them. Hey, he said lightly, we're all family. Nikki's smile widened. Exactly, and family tells the truth. Some women don't understand luxury because they've never had it. It's not their fault. She nodded at Selena's blouse. But we can educate them. Ryan laughed again, softer now, a little uncertain. She's just teasing, he told Selena. Selena held his gaze. I know, she said. The words were even, but her heart felt heavy, like it had been asked to carry something it hadn't agreed to. They stepped out into the bright noon. The street smelled like citrus and car exhaust. Ryan's parents said goodbye and drifted down the sidewalk. Nikki adjusted her sunglasses and hugged Selena. "We'll go shopping next week," she said. "I'll send you links." Selena nodded, a non-committal sound in her throat. Nikki turned and clicked away on high heels, the designer dress moving like a flag of victory. Ryan slipped his hand into Selena's. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said. It was not a lie. She was not broken, just tired in a way she could not name. They walked to the car without speaking. In the passenger seat, she scrolled through social media and found Nikki's story. The filtered brunch, the caption "Family Polish," a tag on the dress brand, and a frame where Selena's cup hid her face. The first cracks in her faith weren't thunderous. They were hairline fissures, quiet lines under the paint. She thought about the bouquet in the prettier vase and the macarons no one opened. She thought about the way Ryan laughed to keep things easy. She thought about all the times she'd told herself to be gracious and small. "Next Sunday?" Ryan asked as they merged into traffic. "Mom wants to try that rooftop place." Selena watched the skyline move like a promise that kept changing shape. "We'll see," she said. Her voice was calm, but inside something had shifted, small, firm, undeniable. She could live with thorns, she told herself. She just had to stop pretending they were petals. The first week of March always brought a shift in the air. Cool mornings, softer light. And for Selena, it meant one thing: Ryan's birthday. It was his favorite time of year, not for gifts or cake, but for gathering friends and family. He loved a house full of noise, laughter spilling into the hallways. This year, Selena decided she would make it perfect. She booked a private dining room at one of Ryan's favorite restaurants, ordered custom decorations in warm golds and deep blues, and arranged for a playlist of songs from their dating years. She even worked with the chef to create a special dessert that combined his love of chocolate with her fondness for berries. She made lists, guest lists, seating plans, menu notes, tucking them into her work folder between company reports. Every break between meetings was spent coordinating details, and every evening she scrolled through decor catalogs instead of relaxing with a book. She wanted Ryan to feel celebrated, wanted the whole family to see she could create something elegant without a hint of pretension. It was a Thursday afternoon when she stopped by Ryan's parents' house to drop off the final invitations. The hallway smelled faintly of lavender polish. Voices drifted from the kitchen, low at first, then sharper. Selena froze just before the doorway, her hands tightening on the envelope stack. "She's a charity case, you know." Nikki's voice floated through, tinged with amusement. Ryan could have married anyone, but he picked someone so plain. I mean, she's not ugly, but next to him, forgettable. You'd never guess she married into this family if you saw her in the street. Selena's stomach tightened. She knew she shouldn't listen, but her feet wouldn't move. Nikki laughed lightly. "And the way she dresses, like she's saving for a rainy day that never comes. Honestly, I think Ryan married her out of pity. She's lucky to be here." A phone beeped, the sound of a message sent. "Anyway," Nikki went on, "I'll try to help her upgrade. It's embarrassing sometimes being seen together. People think she's the help." The words settled on Selena's chest like cold stones. She took a breath, made herself step back from the doorway, and counted silently to 5. Then she walked in, her face smooth, her voice warm. "Nikki, I brought your invitation for Ryan's party. I think you'll like the venue." Nikki looked up from her phone, smile flicking into place as if it had been waiting. "Oh, lovely. You're really going all out this year." Selena handed over the envelope. "I thought he deserved something special." Ryan's mother accepted hers with a nod, unaware of the sting in Selena's chest. They chatted about the menu, about how many guests would come, about whether Ryan's childhood friend from college could make it. Selena kept her tone even, her hands steady, and when she finally left, her car felt like the only safe place to breathe. That night, she sat at her desk, updating the final seating chart. She replayed Nikki's words in her mind, each one sharp-edged. Charity case? Plain. Lucky to be here. She imagined confronting her, imagined the look on Nikki's face if she listed every accomplishment Nikki didn't know about. The companies, the properties, the deals closed before breakfast. But she didn't. Instead, she poured her energy into the party. She confirmed the florist's delivery time, double-checked the string lights for the photo wall, and arranged a surprise video montage from Ryan's friends across the country. She chose her dress carefully, not flashy, but tailored, in a color that made her feel strong. In the days leading up to the celebration, she kept her interactions with Nikki short, polite. At brunch, she nodded through small talk. At a family dinner, she excused herself early, citing early meetings. She kept her armor in place. On the morning of Ryan's birthday, she woke before sunrise. The sky outside was still deep blue, the city quiet. She brewed coffee, set out a small wrapped box for him, a watch he'd admired but never bought, and wrote a card in her neat script, "You've given me so much joy. I hope this year gives you the same." Ryan came into the kitchen, hair mussed from sleep, and kissed her cheek. "You've been up early," he said, smiling at the smell of fresh coffee. "Just wanted to start the day right," she replied. She didn't tell him about the phone call she'd overheard. She didn't tell him that part of her was counting the hours until the party was over. She wanted this day to be about him, not about the shadow his sister had cast. Still, as they drove to the venue that evening, her fingers twisted in her lap. She glanced at Ryan, who was happily talking about the surprise guests he'd heard were coming. She smiled and answered, but in the back of her mind, the storm clouds gathered. Quiet, patient, waiting for the right moment to break. The restaurant's private dining room glowed with warm light, the gold and blue decorations catching every flicker of the candles. Guests milled around, glasses in hand, laughter spilling into the air. The sound of soft jazz drifted from the corner where a small trio played, blending seamlessly with the clink of cutlery. Selena moved quietly among the guests, making sure everyone had what they needed. The florist's arrangement, a mix of golden roses and deep blue delphiniums, sat in the center of the long table, exactly as she had envisioned. Ryan stood near the window, surrounded by friends and colleagues, his laughter easy and full. Seeing him that happy made every late-night planning session worth it. When the time came for speeches, Ryan's father said a few words about how proud they were of him. His mother followed with a short, affectionate toast. Finally, Ryan's eyes found Selena's across the room, and he reached for her hand. "Selena's the reason tonight looks this beautiful," he said, pulling her closer. "She planned everything, down to the music, and she has something for me, apparently." Selena smiled, a little shy under the attention, and handed him a small box wrapped in navy paper. "Happy birthday, Ryan." He unwrapped it carefully, revealing the watch, sleek, understated, exactly his style. His eyes softened. "Selena, it's perfect." He kissed her cheek as the guests clapped. Before the applause could fade, Nikki's voice cut through, high and clear. "Oh, Selena, where did you get that dress? I think I saw something similar in the clearance section at Bloomfield's." The laughter in the room stuttered and died. Selena kept her face neutral, but Nikki wasn't done. "It's so nice you're making an effort," she continued, smiling sweetly. "Though, really, you don't need to spend money on clothes. You're not exactly in the kind of position where appearances matter. I mean, you don't contribute financially, right?" A few guests shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting anywhere but at the sisters-in-law. Someone coughed into their napkin. Ryan frowned. "Nikki? I'm just saying," Nikki went on, voice still sugar-coated. "Ryan's always been generous. It's sweet how you focus on the home while he, well, handles the important things." Selena's pulse pounded in her ears. She could feel the weight of every glance, the unspoken pity or curiosity in the room. She thought of the companies she managed, the contracts she had negotiated in boardrooms full of men who underestimated her, the late nights she'd spent building a life that had nothing to do with Ryan's income. And here was Nikki, erasing it all with a smile. She glanced at the guests, Ryan's college friends looking at the floor, his colleagues pretending to check their phones, even his parents frozen in their seats. No one spoke. Selena forced a small smile. "I'm glad you like the dress," she said, her voice calm, almost pleasant. "I chose it because it's comfortable and tonight's about celebrating Ryan, not labels." But Nikki only laughed, shaking her head as though Selena's words were adorable but misguided. "Oh, Selena, you're so humble." Ryan shifted uncomfortably, but before he could say more, the servers began bringing out dessert plates, a momentary distraction that broke the tension. The conversation resumed, but it felt forced, brittle. Selena stood at Ryan's side, smiling when expected, speaking when spoken to, her mind somewhere far away. She watched Nikki across the table, laughing with a group of guests, her voice carrying easily over the music. Selena thought of the phone call she had overheard days ago, of every sly remark over brunches and dinners, and of how Ryan's family had let them pass without challenge. Her gaze drifted back to Ryan, who was listening to a friend's story, his hand resting lightly on her arm. He had no idea that something in her had shifted, that the patience she'd been clinging to was wearing thin. When the cake came out and everyone sang, Selena clapped along, smiling for the cameras. She stood beside Ryan for the photos, leaning into him as the flash went off. But inside, she was counting. Counting the times she had stayed silent, counting the days until she no longer would. The party continued late into the night, but for Selena, the warmth in the room had cooled. The gold and blue decorations still shimmered, but the air felt heavy, the music faint under the steady drumbeat in her chest. She had thought she could live with the little cuts, the whispered judgments, the casual dismissals. Tonight proved otherwise. Tonight, something had broken. And once broken, it could not be made whole again. The moment came without warning, though in truth it had been building for months. The party had started to wind down. Some guests lingered over coffee, others moved toward the balcony for fresh air. Selena sat beside Ryan, listening absently as one of his colleagues described an upcoming business trip. Across the table, Nikki's laughter floated above the hum of conversation, sharp and bright. Then, as if she'd been waiting for the perfect moment, Nikki leaned forward, her voice pitched just loud enough for those nearby to hear. "You know, Ryan," she said, "I still don't know how you do it. You married a woman who's, well, simple, and yet you make it work. I guess love really is blind." The words were coated in sugar, but the bite was unmistakable. A few people froze mid-sip, eyes flicking toward Selena. Ryan frowned, opening his mouth to speak, but Nikki wasn't finished. "I mean, look at tonight," she continued, gesturing toward the table. "Sure, it's nice, but I'm guessing Selena had to be careful with the budget. Not that it's her fault. She's not exactly a breadwinner." A thin, awkward laugh escaped someone down the table, quickly swallowed by silence. Selena felt something inside her snap. It wasn't dramatic. No lightning bolt, no rush of anger. Just a clean, precise break, like glass under pressure. She rose from her chair slowly, the scrape of wood against the floor pulling everyone's attention. Nikki looked up, surprised, a smile still hovering on her lips. Selena stepped toward her, the distance between them shrinking in 2 measured strides. Then came the sound, sharp, sudden, impossible to mistake. Selena's palm met Nikki's cheek in a single fluid motion, the crack of it slicing through the room like the end of a song. The silence afterward was absolute. Forks hovered in midair, eyes widened, breaths caught in throats. Nikki's hand flew to her face, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Did you?" she began, but her voice faltered. Selena's own hand fell back to her side. She didn't look away, didn't apologize. Her voice was calm, steady, almost too quiet. "That," she said, "was for every word you've thrown at me like it didn't matter." Ryan sat frozen, his expression unreadable. His gaze flicked between the two women as if searching for the right thing to say, but no words came. Selena turned to the table, her posture straight, her expression serene. "I hope you all enjoy the rest of the evening," she said. "Please excuse me." She walked toward the door, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Behind her, the murmur of voices rose, low, frantic, disbelieving. She didn't glance back, though she felt the weight of every stare following her to the exit. Outside the private room, the restaurant's main dining area was still alive with music and conversation. The contrast made her chest ache, but her steps didn't falter. She passed the hostess stand, nodded politely, and stepped out into the cool night air. The street was quiet, the glow of street lamps painting long shadows on the pavement. She drew a deep breath, the chill filling her lungs, steadying her racing heart. Her palms still tingled, a reminder of the choice she had just made. In the glass window beside the door, her reflection looked back, calm, collected, a little pale. But her eyes held something new, something clear. She had not planned it. She had not rehearsed the words or the gesture. But for the first time in months, she felt entirely herself. Somewhere inside, her phone buzzed. A call or a message she didn't check. She walked toward the corner, letting the noise of the city wash over her. She didn't know what Ryan would say when they spoke next, or how his family would react. But one thing was certain, she had drawn a line, and for Selena, there was no going back. By morning, the slap had already taken on a life of its own. Selena woke to the vibration of her phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up with notifications. At first, she ignored them, rolling onto her back and staring at the ceiling. The faint hum of traffic outside felt distant, unreal. When she finally picked up the phone, the family group chat was flooded with messages. Nikki, I can't believe what happened last night. Ryan's Aunt Claire, I'm shocked. We've never had anything like this at a family gathering. Nikki, I don't know what I did to deserve that. I was just talking. Let's not make this worse. We're all family. Easy for you to say. You weren't the one humiliated in front of everyone. Selena read each message without replying. There was no point in adding her side. She knew exactly how the group would take it. Sides already forming, alliances already whispered about in private chats. By mid-morning, her phone buzzed with messages from people she barely spoke to anymore. Friends of friends sent her screenshots from social media. Someone at the party had caught the slap on video. It wasn't crystal clear, just a blur of movement and the sharp sound, but it was enough to feed the gossip. At the small cafe where she liked to work, she overheard two women at the next table talking. Apparently, she just stood up and hit her, one said in a half whisper. And then walked out like nothing happened, her companion gasped. That's so cold. Who even does that? Selena stirred her tea, her expression calm, her heartbeat steady. She didn't feel cold. She felt deliberate. Back at home, Ryan was in the kitchen, phone in hand. He looked up when she entered, his brow furrowed. Selena, what happened last night? You were there, she said, setting her keys on the counter. I mean, what happened before that? He set the phone down. Nikki says you've been holding something against her for months. She swears she didn't mean anything by what she said. Selena met his gaze evenly. If that's true, then she won't have any reason to be worried going forward. He studied her, as if trying to read between her words. You've never reacted like that before, not once. It's like I don't even know you. Maybe you don't, she said simply, and moved past him to make herself a drink. For the rest of the day, she stayed busy with work. Emails, phone calls, a meeting with one of her managers. None of it slowed. She preferred it that way. The noise of her professional life was cleaner, sharper than the muddied waters of family drama. Nikki, meanwhile, was everywhere. Posts on her Instagram hinted at betrayal. Quotes about being hurt by those you call family. Selfies with a hand resting dramatically near her cheek. Dinner with sympathetic friends. Her comments were full of supportive messages. That evening, Ryan tried again. You don't have to apologize, he said, sitting beside her on the couch. But maybe explain? People are getting the wrong idea. Selena closed the laptop on her knees. Let them. That's not like you, he said. She smiled faintly. Maybe this is like me, and you just haven't seen it before. He leaned back, eyes on her as though weighing a stranger. I thought I knew every side of you. She didn't respond. The truth was, she had spent their marriage making herself smaller in his family's eyes, letting comments slide, letting her work remain invisible. That woman was gone. The whispers would keep going. She knew. People would pick apart what happened, invent their own backstories, assign motives she never voiced. But she wouldn't give them a single word more than what they'd already seen. By the time she went to bed, the video had been shared again, this time by someone in Ryan's circle of college friends. The caption read, "When family drama goes public." The comments were a mix of shock, judgment, and in some cases, quiet applause. Selena turned off her phone and set it face down on the nightstand. The storm could rage outside. She was done standing in the middle of it, just to keep everyone else dry. Nikki had never been one to let a grudge cool on its own. The morning after the slap, she sat at her breakfast table, scrolling through her phone with a steaming cappuccino at her elbow, replaying the scene over and over in her mind. The sting on her cheek was long gone, but the humiliation clung to her like a stubborn stain. She had tried the sympathy route, posting cryptic messages, leaning on friends to support her through this hurtful time. But it wasn't enough. People were asking questions, and Nikki hated not being in control of the narrative. If Selena wanted to play mysterious, fine. Nikki would dig into her past, find whatever unflattering truth she could, and expose her as nothing more than the charity case she believed her to be. She started with the obvious: social media. Selena's profiles were minimal, almost annoyingly curated. No oversharing, no old college photos, no hints of financial struggle. The woman didn't even post vacation pictures, which Nikki found suspicious. From there, she moved to mutual acquaintances, sending casual messages masked as idle curiosity. "Hey, you knew Selena before she married my brother, right? What was she doing back then?" Most replies were vague, something about running a business, always traveling for work. Unsatisfied, Nikki dug deeper. A friend in her circle, who worked at a mid-sized accounting firm, owed her a favor. Over lunch, Nikki leaned across the table. "See what you can find on Selena Pierce. Business registrations, properties, whatever's public. I just need to know who I'm dealing with." 2 days later, the friend sent her a file. Nikki opened it, expecting to find some tiny online shop or an inherited trust fund that explained Selena's comfortable lifestyle. What she saw instead made her sit back in stunned silence. Selena Pierce was the registered CEO of 3 companies, one in tech solutions, another in luxury event planning, and a third in sustainable fashion retail. All 3 showed steady growth, impressive revenue, and high-profile clients. She owned a townhouse in the city, 2 rental properties, and a piece of commercial real estate in a prime location. Nikki scrolled through the numbers again, her mouth dry. Selena's personal net worth didn't just match Ryan's family, it eclipsed it by a lot. The next hour was a blur of disbelief and indignation. How could this be? Selena, the woman she'd mocked for her cheap clothes, was quietly running an empire without anyone in the family realizing. By the weekend, the information had started to leak. Nikki hadn't planned to tell anyone outright, but her shock had a way of spilling in conversation. At a brunch with 2 friends, she accidentally mentioned the businesses. I mean, who hides something like that? 3 companies? It's so pretentious. Her friends, wide-eyed, were quick to pass the story along. Soon, whispers reached the extended family. Selena's cousin by marriage sent her a congratulatory text she hadn't expected. "Heard about your companies. Impressive work." Ryan, meanwhile, seemed caught between curiosity and unease. "Why didn't you ever tell me you own all this?" he asked one evening, pacing the living room. Selena looked up from her laptop. "You never asked." "That's not an answer." She closed the laptop slowly. "It's my work. I built it before you, and I'll keep building it after you. It wasn't relevant to the way your family treated me." Ryan's brow furrowed. "You could have said something. It would have shut Nikki down months ago." Selena's smile was faint, deliberate. She didn't need to know, and now she does. Within days, the tone in the family group chat shifted. Messages to Selena were suddenly warmer, laced with politeness. Ryan's mother invited her to lunch, just us girls. His father sent her an article on sustainable business trends. Nikki, however, went silent. No snide remarks, no casual digs, just absence. Selena noticed, of course. She also noticed the way people at gatherings now glanced at her with new calculation, as though reassessing her place in the family hierarchy. It was almost amusing, how quickly perception could change when money was involved. But she didn't rush to claim the upper hand. She let the truth settle in slowly, like ink spreading through water. And she knew, without question, that this was only the beginning. At the next family dinner, Ryan's mother greeted Selena at the door with an enthusiasm that felt almost rehearsed. "Selena, dear, you look wonderful," she gushed, her eyes lingering on Selena's tailored blazer as if seeing her for the first time. Ryan's father stepped forward to take the bottle of wine she'd brought, thanking her twice before ushering them in. The dining table, usually set with casual family fare, was laid out more elegantly than Selena remembered. Linen napkins, polished silverware, candles flickering softly. She was given the seat beside Ryan's mother instead of across the table, a small but telling change. Throughout dinner, they asked about her businesses, genuinely, or perhaps strategically interested in her work. "The sustainable fashion line," Ryan's father said, leaning forward. "That's the one in the magazines, isn't it? You must tell us more." Selena smiled politely, answering in measured detail. She noticed the way Nikki stayed quiet at first, pushing food around her plate, her gaze fixed anywhere but on Selena. It wasn't until dessert that the shift became fully visible. Ryan's father cleared his throat, looking a little uncomfortable. "Selena, I wanted to thank you for helping out with the property taxes last year. I didn't realize..." He trailed off, glancing at Ryan. Selena set down her fork. "It wasn't a problem," she said simply. Ryan's brow furrowed. "What property taxes?" His father gave a small shrug. "We were short. It's been tight lately with the investments we made. Your wife covered it without making a fuss." Ryan turned to her slowly. "You never told me." "You never asked," she said, her tone neutral. The conversation drifted elsewhere, but Ryan stayed unusually quiet. On the drive home, he finally spoke. "How many times have you done that? Covered things for my family?" Selena looked out the window, the city lights sliding past. "A few. Utilities, the roof repair 2 years ago, the shortfall when your mom's gallery opening went over budget. It wasn't worth making an issue of." He gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You've been supporting them. All this time." She didn't answer, and that was answer enough. Back at the dinner table, Nikki had eventually found her voice, though it wavered more than usual. She leaned toward Selena, a practiced smile on her lips. "I've been meaning to apologize for, the other night. Things just got out of hand. I didn't mean to upset you." Selena looked at her for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "It's forgotten," she said at last, the words polite but cool as if they were discussing the weather. Nikki pressed on. "I was thinking we could go shopping sometime. My treat. Just us girls." Selena's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I appreciate the offer, but my schedule's full for the foreseeable future." That small refusal landed heavier than any argument could have. Nikki leaned back, her mouth tightening, the sparkle in her eyes dimming. Over the following weeks, Selena noticed the changes everywhere. Ryan's parents deferred to her in conversations they once would have dismissed her from. At gatherings, extended family members asked for her opinion on business ideas. Even the tone of Nikki's social media shifted, less ostentatious, more curated, as though trying to match Selena's quiet elegance. For Selena, the transformation wasn't about revenge, it was about balance. The power dynamic had shifted, and everyone knew it. She no longer had to prove her worth. Her silence carried more weight than their chatter ever had. Ryan, still processing, began watching her differently. Not with suspicion, but with a new kind of respect, tinged with guilt. One evening, he admitted, "I thought I was the one holding this family together. Turns out, it's been you all along." Selena didn't correct him, didn't soften the truth. She simply sipped her tea, the quiet between them heavier than words. And in that quiet, Ryan, and the rest of his family, began to understand that the woman they had once underestimated was not just a part of the family. She was the foundation holding it up. Nikki had always been proud of her reputation. In her world of curated brunches, designer handbags, and weekend getaways, image was currency. But since the slap and the quiet leak about Selena's wealth, her social standing had begun to slip. Friends she once dominated in conversation now asked cautiously, "So, Selena's really that successful?" Others stopped inviting her to certain gatherings, perhaps afraid of being caught in the middle. Worse, whispers about her being jealous of her sister-in-law circulated like perfume in a crowded room, impossible to ignore. Nikki decided she needed to act fast. She couldn't undo the slap, but she could rewrite the ending. If she publicly reconciled with Selena, it might stop the gossip and restore her image. And if she staged it just right, it would make her look magnanimous. She chose the setting carefully, a family dinner at Ryan's parents' house, where everyone could witness her change of heart. The dining table was set for 10, candles glowing, the smell of roast chicken filling the air. Selena arrived with Ryan, dressed in a sleek black dress, her hair pinned up neatly. From the moment they stepped in, Nikki was unusually warm. "Selena, you look amazing," she said, moving in for a quick hug. Selena returned the gesture with polite restraint, offering a small smile. Throughout dinner, Nikki laughed at Selena's comments, asked about her businesses, and avoided any hint of sarcasm. But halfway through the meal, she decided it was time for her performance. She set down her fork, took a breath loud enough for the table to notice, and looked directly at Selena. "I want to say something." Conversation stopped. All eyes turned toward her. Nikki's voice softened, trembling just enough to sound emotional. "Selena, I know I've said things in the past that hurt you. I was wrong. I was jealous, maybe. And I want to apologize, in front of everyone, for making you feel unwelcome in this family." She reached across the table, palm up. "Can we start over?" The room held its breath. Ryan looked at Selena, waiting. Selena, calm as ever, set down her glass of water and met Nikki's gaze. "Thank you for saying that," she said, her voice polite, even warm, but she didn't take Nikki's hand. "I appreciate the sentiment, but there's no need to make a scene. Let's just enjoy dinner." Nikki's hand hovered awkwardly before she pulled it back, forcing a small laugh as if to mask the rejection. "Of course, I just wanted to make it clear." Ryan's father cleared his throat and passed the bread basket, trying to shift the mood. But the damage was done. Nikki had hoped for a grand, reconciliatory moment to show the family and her social circle that everything was fine. Instead, Selena had sidestepped her neatly, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a public embrace. As the evening went on, Ryan began to notice the contrast. Selena was poised, engaging in conversation without forcing herself into the spotlight. Nikki, meanwhile, tried too hard, offering to serve dessert, complimenting Selena's dress twice in the same breath, even laughing too loudly at a mild joke. On the way home, Ryan glanced at his wife. "You handled that well." Selena arched an eyebrow. "Handled what?" "You know what? Nikki's show." He hesitated. "She's been out of line for a long time. I should have stepped in sooner." Selena didn't answer immediately. She watched the streetlights pass, the golden glow flickering over the dashboard. "It's not about stepping in, Ryan. It's about knowing when not to feed a performance." He reached for her hand, giving it a squeeze. "You're right, and for what it's worth, I'm with you on this, from now on." Selena glanced at him, a small smile playing at her lips. She didn't need his loyalty to survive in this family, but knowing he was finally starting to see the truth made the road ahead a little easier. Behind them, in the quiet of her own apartment, Nikki sat scrolling through her phone, replaying the dinner in her mind. The applause she'd hoped for never came, and as much as she hated to admit it, she knew. Selena was no longer someone she could control, belittle, or outshine. The balance of power had shifted for good. The house was quiet in the early morning, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floors. Selena sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring out at the garden. The events of the past months felt like a string pulled too tight. Every remark, every silence, every shift in how they looked at her now. She had walked into Ryan's family believing she could earn her place through kindness and patience. Instead, she had learned that respect was not something you waited to be given. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Board meeting, 9 a.m. She gathered her notes, straightened her blazer, and left without waking Ryan. The boardroom at her company's headquarters was a world apart from family dinners. Here, her voice carried weight without effort. Executives listened as she outlined a proposal for expanding operations into Europe, a move that could double their revenue in 2 years. Charts lit up the screen, figures in bold. "It's a significant leap," one director said, "but you've built the foundation. If anyone can make this work, it's you." Selena nodded, but her mind wandered for a moment. Moving abroad, at least part-time, would mean distance. Distance from Nikki's constant games, from the undercurrent of judgment in family gatherings, even from Ryan's sometimes passive role in it all. It would also mean leaving behind the life she'd thought she wanted. When the meeting ended, she lingered by the tall windows overlooking the city. The hum of traffic far below felt like a different rhythm, one she could step into without looking back. That evening, Ryan was waiting in the living room when she came home. He had the look of someone rehearsing words all day. "We need to talk," he said. Selena set down her bag. "About?" "I heard from your assistant that you're planning an expansion abroad. London, maybe Paris. Were you going to tell me?" "I was going to," she said evenly, "but I wanted to be sure it was worth discussing." Ryan stood, running a hand through his hair. "Selena, if you take this, you'll be gone for months at a time. That's not exactly what we planned." "What did we plan, Ryan?" Her voice was calm, but there was steel under it. "For me to keep making space for your family while pretending their treatment of me never happened?" He flinched. "I know I didn't protect you the way I should have, but things are better now. They respect you." "They respect what I own," she corrected. "Not me." Ryan stepped closer, his voice low. "I don't want to lose you. I've already lost enough ground with you, and I see that now. Just give me a chance to make this right before you put an ocean between us." Selena studied him for a long moment. She saw sincerity, but also fear. The fear of losing the stability she brought, not just to the marriage, but to the entire family. "This expansion is the next step for my companies," she said finally. "I won't hold back my growth for comfort's sake." He swallowed. "Then let me come with you, or at least let me be part of it somehow." She didn't answer right away. She turned toward the window, watching the last of the daylight fade into the city lights. "I'll think about it," she said, her tone making it clear that the decision, like everything else she had fought for, would be hers alone. Ryan nodded slowly, but the tension in his shoulders didn't ease. He knew she was already halfway gone, and this time there might not be a way to pull her back. The last family gathering of the year was held at Ryan's parents' house, a tradition they never missed. The long dining table was dressed with holiday colors, the air rich with the scent of roasted meat and cinnamon. Candles flickered in the corners, casting a soft glow on the faces around the table. Selena arrived with Ryan, her presence as composed as ever. She wore a deep emerald dress, simple yet elegant, with a gold pendant resting just above her collarbone. Her smile was polite, her greetings measured. She moved through the room without hesitation, shaking hands, exchanging kisses on cheeks, aware that every pair of eyes followed her. Dinner began with the usual chatter, but the undercurrent was different. Since the truth about her wealth and businesses had spread, conversations with her carried a new tone, more cautious, more deliberate. Ryan's father asked her about the upcoming European expansion, genuinely curious. His mother offered to connect her with a cousin in London who knows the market well. Nikki, seated diagonally across from her, kept her head low, contributing little to the conversation. Every so often, her gaze flicked towards Selena, then quickly away. Midway through the meal, Ryan's father raised his glass. "Before we finish tonight, I think it's important we acknowledge the past year. We've had our share of disagreements." His glance swept the table, lingering briefly on Nikki. "But we're family, and we've managed to come through stronger." Selena set down her fork, feeling the moment open in front of her. She knew this was her opportunity, not to settle scores, but to make her stance clear once and for all. She dabbed her lips with her napkin and stood. "I'd like to say something," she began. The room quieted instantly. Her voice was steady, gracious, but every word carried weight. "When I joined this family, I believed respect was something that would grow naturally between us. Over time, I learned that respect isn't given freely, it's earned, and it's also chosen. We all choose, every day, how to treat the people in our lives. Some of us choose kindness, others not so much." Her gaze moved briefly toward Nikki, not lingering, just enough to make the point. "I want to be clear, I will not accept being spoken to or treated with anything less than respect again. Not for what I do, not for what I own, but for who I am. I expect the same from myself toward all of you." No one moved. The soft clink of a fork against porcelain sounded far down the table. "I'm proud of the work I've built, and I'm proud to be Ryan's wife," she continued. "But my dignity is not negotiable. We can share dinners, holidays, milestones, but only if we can share them in mutual respect. If that's not possible, then I'll choose to be elsewhere." She didn't need to raise her voice. The clarity in her tone cut sharper than any volume could. She lifted her glass slightly in a small final toast. To the year ahead, may we do better. She sat, and the silence lingered for several seconds before Ryan's father nodded and murmured, "Well said." Others followed with quiet agreements, though no one tried to fill the space with forced cheer. When the evening ended, Selena stood to leave. Ryan was beside her, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back, but he didn't speak. He didn't need to. She knew he had heard her just as much as the rest of them. At the door, she gave polite goodbyes. Nikki hovered near the hallway, her usual brightness dimmed. As Selena passed, Nikki's eyes met hers. There was no sarcasm this time, no half-smile, just a flicker of something that might have been regret, or the realization of how far she had fallen in this quiet shift of power. Selena stepped out into the cool night air, her heels clicking against the driveway. The air felt sharper, cleaner. She didn't know yet if she would stay in the marriage or take her next steps alone. What she did know with absolute certainty was that whatever came next, she would face it with her head high. Behind her, through the warm glow of the doorway, Nikki watched her go. For the first time, she truly understood the cost of her arrogance, and that Selena would never again be someone she could belittle.